Hello, and welcome to A New Day with Susan. I'm your host, Susan Yockey. And today I am here with Nikki Gang. Now, this I need help with. Nikki, how do I pronounce your last name, girl?
Gangemi.
Jimmy. Okay, awesome. See, that seems so simple, but when I'm looking at it, it's like dyslexic or something going on. Anyways, I am here with Nikki Gangemi.
Gangemi. Gangemi. I know it's a little tricky. The G's are different. You got the hard
Gangemi. Okay.
Gangemi.
I am here with Nikki Gangemi, an educator, speaker, and a transformational coach. Nikki recently published her first children's book, My Gracie, and is the owner of Mindful Matters LLC. Her mission is to motivate and inspire children, teens, and adults to know their worth, develop a growth mindset, and step into their greatness so they can live. Can't read my own writing. So they can live their life with more peace, happiness, and authenticity. I would suck at doing an actual live. No, I shouldn't say I'd suck, but I'd have a lot of bloopers, funny ones. Their greatness so they can live their life with more peace, happiness, and authenticity. Through understanding emotions, releasing limitations and blocks that no longer serve them, reframing your thoughts and shifting your perceptions, everyone can live with more connection, purpose, passion, and fulfillment. And you can find out more about Nikki and connect with her by just heading over to mindfulmattersliving.com. And I will include that link on my post and my page so that you can go connecting and especially check out the book. I actually got a copy and I loved it. My 3.5-year-old didn't really understand it much, but I do know that her being actually hears what I was reading. So, and thank you for that book, and welcome, Nikki, to my show.
Thank you, Susan. I'm excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yes, as we work through all the bloopers of today, I think it's the cold weather that's rubbing off and has me being scatterbrained, and then you've got that little bit of excitement about, oh, April's just, it's right there. You can feel it. Come on, April. So where are you at again, Nikki?
I'm in New Jersey.
So you kind of experiencing some similar stuff.
Yeah, some snow last week. Very unusual, but it's interesting.
Yeah. So right before we started talking, you were sharing with me that you're a teacher. What is the grade that you teach?
I'm teaching kindergarten right now.
Oh,
yeah, they're
the
cute.
Little ones.
So cute, innocent, open-minded.
Yeah. That's beautiful. I know. I have a 3.5-year-old, and I'm debating on whether homeschooling or just letting her have that first few years in school to get the basics and that socialization. And so acknowledge you with everything that's going on in the world today around schools. I can't imagine if maybe you don't experience this, but maybe you do, and you can speak to this, is that I know that I've seen in my timeline and have heard teachers expressing how they're actually been treated because of the stuff that's happening around the world today in our schools. So if you'd like to speak into that, you're welcome to, but I would love to hear more about what inspired you to write your first children's book.
Yeah, so I'll speak quickly on the school thing.
Okay.
I try to focus on the positive. So I know there's a lot going on in the world and people do tend to want to focus on the negative. But I just try to keep it positive. So I have conditioned, I'll use the word condition, my kindergartners to come in every morning, and upon unpacking, they go to the carpet and they sit down and they go right into meditation, just spending a few minutes, maybe 3 to 5 minutes. They'll meditate a little. They focus on what they're grateful for. So I just feel that it's best, just because we know bad things happen, but it doesn't help us to focus on it. So and at that age, I don't even bring that up and talk about it, because when they're five, they don't understand. So I really haven't felt it. And in my school, it's not something that we talk about. We might have had some extra drills or whatnot, but it's really not something I hear about in my school.
Oh, good. That's good. And you stirred up another question for me because of my daughter. So you do meditation, like actual meditation with your kids?
I do it. None of the other teachers do it in my school, but because of the mindfulness program that I have, it's something I feel that's important. So I started where it was more of a gratitude practice. So they would come in the morning and they would pair and share and talk about what they're grateful for. And then I kind of transitioned to, now let's close our eyes and let's see in our minds, what is that person or that experience or that thing that you're grateful for? And then to connect to, how does that make you feel? So I wanted to tap into their emotions. And then where do you feel that feeling? Do you feel it in your neck? Do you feel it in your shoulders? Is it in your heart? To get them in touch with their feelings and to notice what the feeling feels like in the body, that mind-body awareness. So now I play music. Sometimes I'll put on that 528 hertz frequency music and just play that. They close their eyes. And if I skip the question, so what are you grateful for? They're quick to tell me, well, aren't you going to ask what you're grateful for? So they like to focus on that, which is nice. So I'm glad that they're developing that healthy habit.
Yeah. Wow.
Down. It's just like, let's ease into our day. Let's coast into our day.
Yeah. That is awesome. Oh my gosh. Bella, she will actually, I don't know where she picked this up, because I put my earbuds in usually. And so I'm actually now inspired to take it a little to the next step and see if she'd be willing to go there. But she started doing this on her own, out of the blue. She's like, Mom, watch me. And she puts her hands together and then she lays completely flat on her back and puts her feet together like this too. So she looks like she's doing this with both hands and feet. And she starts going, cutest thing. Oh my gosh.
That's cute.
Well, aren't kindergartners aren't they about the age of 4 or 5?
They're 5 and 6.
5 and 6. Okay.
And I had some, and I say, sit crisscross applesauce, and some would automatic, and I didn't teach them this, but some automatically went like this on their laps.
Oh, really?
Said, oh, I'm meditating. I said, oh, so they must have seen it at home.
Yeah.
I didn't do that with them.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's cool.
I think it's adorable.
Yeah. And so do the parents know that you do this with them?
I tell them,
good.
It comes up in conversation,
And they're okay with it.
Yeah, because I really don't say it's
wow, that's cool.
I don't do this because I don't, I don't use the word meditation. I say that I'm teaching them how to reflect.
Which you are, yeah.
Really, it's just reflection, which is important for all of us.
It is. That's beautiful. Thank you for doing that.
Every day, so that's how I explain it.
Okay. That's awesome. Okay. On to your book. So what inspired you to write? I'm sure it was probably your kids now that I think about it, but what was your actual inspiration? And maybe share about the book a little bit so the listeners can actually know what we're talking about.
Yes. Okay. So My Gracie is the story of a shy young girl who is excluded in school. And one day when her only friend is absent, she's on the playground at recess and she's excluded. So she leaves upset and she stops at a park on the way home and encounters an elephant, which is her imaginary friend or a magical friend. And she goes on a mindful journey in which she discovers that the peace, happiness, courage, everything is already inside of her. So when she goes to school the next day, because she's standing a little taller, so to speak, the kids include her and they treat her differently. I loved it. I think it's a beautiful book. It's really good. And so what inspired you to write it? What inspired me was that, I've been teaching for 13 years and I'm seeing the same problems in
Mm.
school that I encountered when I was in school. So I actually went through
Okay.
the same district that I teach in. I still see kids, they throw around the word bullying. I really don't like to use that word, but
Yeah.
being excluded, being picked on, being made fun of, and not knowing how to handle it. And I'm like, wow, the same thing is going on that I went through
Yeah.
30 years later. And
Wow.
it impacted my life a lot. I've been on the journey of self, development and growth. And I just wanted to teach what I've learned. So that's why, and the story is mine. My Gracie is based on my experience. And I thought I'll
Mm.
share my story in a fun way in a children's book. And I just wanted to teach kids that lesson that you have everything you need inside of you. You don't need to look outside of yourself for confidence or for acceptance. You have everything inside. And then I included a guided meditation at the end. So if parents or teachers wanted to read that or record it to introduce kids to meditation, they can.
That's actually a good idea. I didn't think of that after reading it. I do. I'm not sure if you're aware of John Asraf. He was in the movie The Secret. He's one of my coaches, and
Oh,
he has the what's called Neuro Gym,
mm-hmm.
where he's actually taken it to the level of reprogramming the plasticity, that part of your brain, and rewiring the brain part of it to accelerate in that. So my Bella, when I'm exercising, I just, it's like meditation. She's like, Mom, I want to exercise. And so she listens to that. So that I'll do that with your meditation in the back. I can just record it and let her listen. That's
Record
beautiful.
it.
Awesome.
Do it. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That is so great that you were able to take your experience and apply it in a way that a child can interpret it, because it's not, like I was saying, Bella may not intellectually understand what I'm talking about, but I do know that her being is listening, so it doesn't matter the age, they start learning, and they're little computers and they just take in everything. So
Yeah, they
perfect.
understand. They
And then you're
understand.
a transformational coach as well. Maybe share with us, like, what is the kind of process that you use when you're working with children, teens? I would really love to know how you work with teens, but we can move into that a little bit later because I have a question around anxiety. But what does that look like? What is your process?
Well, most of my, so the Mindful Matters program that I started originally was for children because I work in an elementary school.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't have a lot of experience with working with teens. I've done a couple of workshops, but really what it is teaching them, introducing them to mindfulness practices.
Mm-hmm.
So basic, guided meditation, simple yoga poses to calm down. I introduce them to emotional freedom technique, tapping.
Oh,
I
yeah.
don't know if you're familiar with it, but
Yeah.
yeah, that because I do that on myself too. I've been doing that for a few years. So just different ways to calm down, 4 square breathing, just so that they can self-soothe. And
Yeah.
the other element that I had in the program was teaching them conflict resolution through peaceful ways. So learning how to communicate when they're upset, so they don't have to run
Yeah.
to an adult to tell them. Just I feel this blank when you did this. Please don't do that. So we did a lot of role play, sharing stories. And I found that in the end, it was a 10-week program that I did, that they were definitely more resilient, but there was an increase in self-esteem, self-worth, optimism, and gratitude. Those were the 4 biggest
Okay.
areas of improvement.
Yeah. That's awesome. Because being a teacher, has what your transformational coaching business, when you're working in that area, does it inspire like the other teachers to maybe be curious about what it is that you do and maybe want to practice in their own classes?
Yeah, there was a few teachers that were interested, and one of them took my book and she used it as a lesson. So she read the book with the kids, and then she had them draw, because Gracie goes to her peaceful, quiet place in the story, and she had her kids draw their peaceful, quiet place. And
Oh,
then
maybe you could get her to create a workbook to it.
oh, I was thinking of doing the same thing. Yeah. Yeah.
Get ideas from her. That's awesome.
Let them write, on the back of it, describing their peaceful, quiet place and how it makes them feel. Yeah. There are a few that are interested in that, because I think eventually stickers only go so far, getting kids to be motivated externally. And eventually the sticker is not, they want more, it's not enough. But I think teaching them how to be intrinsically or internally motivated is important. And I always try, and I know they're 5 years old, but, I always say that you do good because it feels good. That's why you do it. So whenever they do something, I always say, how does that make you feel? And then where do you feel that? Where do you notice the feeling? What does it feel like? So I just want them to be inspired inside, not that they're doing something for something outside of themselves.
Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful.
I know they're only 5, and some might say, well, it's a little, tough for them, but they get it. They're smarter than you think.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Very smart. Yep. Yeah. When I look back on when my boys were younger, it's definitely obvious for me. It was a totally different kind of mindset. I grew up, with traumatic childhood and all this stuff, and lack, and just I could give you a list. So when I was raising my boys, it was way different than, well, I was just unconscious. I was not consciously raising them the way that I get to consciously raise my daughter. And I'm still learning a ton every day. So, and that's one of the things I love about being a radio host, is that I get to learn all these new great tools from everybody. So I know that you said you haven't worked a lot with teens, but we both know that kids are from the ages of 0 to 7. That's the most important years. That's when they're like little SpongeBobs, taking it all in, and their environments, and when it's not, when people aren't consciously parenting. I was just doing an interview the other day where she was saying that studies are showing, because parents are best friending their children and doing it all for them, and by the time they hit college, they have stress and high amounts of anxiety, taking medications because of it. And then when they start reaching out for support, they're finding out, well, it's because this is how your parent, not being told their parents are bad, but they start carrying around that resentment. So I think it's great that you are working with children at such a young age. But what kind of impact would you like to make with teens?
With teens, very similar, and I would focus on the emotions. And I do focus on emotions with kids, just in the sense that it's like, well, how are you feeling right now? When this person said this to you, how does that make you feel? Just so that they're aware of, what does anger feel like? What does it feel like to be sad? Or, again, what does it feel like to be happy and grateful? But with teens, I would think that I would want to work with more of the emotion. So somebody says something to you or does something to you, and then most of us take that personally. And we tend to think that it was something I did something wrong, or I must be, unacceptable or not good enough. So just, teaching them more about, tune into your emotions. When something happens or when something is said, how does that make you feel? And then, well, let's come up with a better feeling thought, because that thought isn't going to serve you well. It's only going to make you feel bad and hurt you. So how can we kind of reframe that or shift it into something that is believable to you, that you buy into, but makes you feel a little bit better?
Yeah.
And I did that when I worked with the fourth graders in the program too. To make it more kid friendly, I did red thoughts and green thoughts. So I had red construction paper squares and green ones. And I kept a box and I said, let me hold on to your thoughts. You're welcome to have them back at the end, but let me hold on to them for now. And they didn't need permission. They would just get up and they would go and write down what it was that was on their mind, that was bothering. Was they got a 71 kid wrote, I got a 75% on my math test and I'm really upset about that. And then, but they had to take a green paper and they had to shift that into a positive one. So how can we turn that around? That's going to feel better than that. And then he said, I will try harder next time. And then I kept the red paper and they took the green paper to keep it on their desk to just kind of remind them. So I think it's just how to manage emotions is what I would want to focus on with teens, and not take everything so personally, because that's how we start forming those limiting beliefs. And I know it starts in childhood, but like I said, the reason why I wanted to write that book, I was being picked on and excluded. You just take that well into adulthood. So I think focusing on the emotions, managing the emotions, and really the beliefs, teaching them, I have this feeling and this is the meaning that I'm assigning to it. And is that a fact or is that a belief?
Yeah.
And it's a belief all the time. Yeah. So it's like, how can we reframe that? How can we change that? So that they don't grow up feeling that they're unacceptable or not good enough or unlovable. That most of us grow up feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think awareness is half of everything. I think, you were talking about before about conscious and unconscious. It's like when we become aware, now we're conscious, and that's half of it. And then the other part of it is just being open to seeing something in a new way. So it's a lot of mindset work.
Yeah.
To shift your perspective. But I think a really big piece is the emotions. Just learning to notice how you're feeling.
Yeah.
Because that the emotions drive our actions.
Right.
You have a thought, it gives you a feeling, and then you act based out of that emotion. So I think awareness is really important, and then learning how to shift your perspective, and not take everything so personally.
Yeah, that's a big one. I didn't even learn that until adult life myself. Could you imagine? Like, I know that these tools were around for a long time. I mean, like this is like not new information. But what I think is happening is there's a definite rise in this information, and we're able to reach people in a much bigger way. So, but I was thinking about, do you use that same process with the adults as well?
I do. Yeah.
Do you do any digging in there? Like, if they have like a hidden block, do you take it like a little bit further to try to pinpoint that pattern? Or
I do. I try to get them to really, I'm just guiding them, just trying to get them to, well, when you say that thought, like I am alone, for example, what memory comes to mind? So we could kind of figure out where that came from. So it kind of sheds light on it. And I think that's the biggest thing with beliefs, to look at it as, this is something I have to overcome, that I've had this belief for 20, 30 years or more. It makes it really like something that's difficult or insurmountable. But to look at it as, this is just something that I've created a story around, and it's a story that I replayed throughout my whole life, and it's in my subconscious, and I just really need to shine a light on it.
Yeah.
And if I do that, it kind of can just, dissipates. It just falls. And then it's changing it, like you were talking about with John Assaraf, and just rewiring the subconscious mind. It's like, let me write down a new belief. But again, it has to be something that you buy into, that you can believe in. So I use a lot of the Abraham Hicks processes, the law of attraction processes. I love that.
I do too.
So I use a lot of those processes, and then also incorporate that with mindfulness practices. I think the more we can become aware, and we don't have to sit and meditate every day, but I tell people, because some people are like, oh, I don't have time to sit. You really don't have to. I said, you can use everyday things that you do, making your cup of coffee, taking your shower. It's just a moment to just be present for 30 seconds. And the more you can go to the moment and use those senses that we have, that we're so lucky to have, the more you train your brain to just slow down.
Yeah.
I feel like these days, go ahead.
Go ahead. I was just going to say, so what in your life, well, I have kind of two questions here. So I'm just thinking about which one I should go with first. Because obviously I can hear that you're passionate about what you do in your coaching, especially with the children. And we always start something, because not a lot of people just get into coaching just because they get into coaching. It's actually a skill that's learned. However, there's something that is like this push for, or a pull even, for someone to actually become a mentor or coach. What was it for you? And was there a shift, or did something happen in your life that you just knew that this was what you wanted to do?
Okay, so back up.
I'm shifting gears on you here.
Okay. Go ahead. Oh, okay. I thought you were going to.
Oh, sorry.
Okay. No, I'm going to go back.
Yep, that's good.
I think really what it was, I can remember the moment, and I don't want to make it about a sad thing, but you asked me a question, so I'm going to answer it. So I said that when I started the program Mindful Matters, and then ended up writing the book to go along with teaching the principles. It was because I was seeing the same thing going on in schools all these years later that I've struggled with well into my adulthood. What really pushed me to get the program off the ground and get it into the schools was when a friend of mine from high school, when his son committed suicide in 10th grade. And when that happened, I was just, enough is enough. I really feel that kids really need to learn what to do with these feelings that they're having, and also to even communicate them, because some kids are just not comfortable sharing how they're feeling, and they keep it to themselves, and they keep it buried inside. And there's just really no reason why anyone should feel that they can't speak up and say how they're feeling. And I feel that really was the defining moment. And this doesn't need to happen. So I wanted to teach them how to have the confidence to speak up, to give them the language to be able to say what it is they're feeling, and a space to be heard. And then the skills, the tools, the breathing, the meditation, the emotional freedom technique, the tapping, and then just what are emotions? That's how I started the program. We played hot potato. I equated it to, you wouldn't keep your hand on a hot stove. You pull it away, it hurts, but yet when it comes to emotions, God, I've held on to anger and resentment for a good 20 years.
That's a good metaphor, yeah.
Right?
Oh,
and it's that when it comes to emotions. And I think some of it is just, we don't really learn. I feel we don't learn in school how to deal with emotions. We're told a lot, stop crying, get over it, move on.
Yeah.
But, I think that they need to be taught. So that's what, and then as far as helping adults, I started having a lot of adults saying, would you teach me how to calm down, how to feel better? I'm like, I started thinking about it, and I said, you know what? I really don't care who I'm helping, whether it's kids, teens, or adults. It's all the same. I just really, I feel like I've spent so much time trying to move myself forward and let go of a lot of the limiting beliefs that I've had that have held me back, that I feel like now I'm in a space to share what I've learned. And I just feel that's, and I wouldn't change anything. If I did not go through everything that I went through, I would not have had this passion or this interest in what I'm doing now. So there was a reason for it. And I haven't been happier. I'm just very excited about this.
I can tell. Yeah. Yeah, it's awesome. And we need more people like us to be out in the world. and create positive media, and offset that negative stuff out there. And yeah, I love it. You're amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you for what you do. It's
Thank
awesome,
Thank
especially with our teens these days. In Montana, we have I don't know it off the top of my head, but the statistics for suicide rates for teens is really high here. And we're a very rural state. We've only got like 1 million people in the entire state. So it just, yeah. And so, yeah, and we're always inspired by something. So when did you start doing your own self-development and growth for yourself? When did that begin?
That began, I want to say I was around 15.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
it was, yeah. And I actually have a memory of when I was 16 and I went to my mom and her aunt, my aunt, my mom and my aunt went to this, like, it was like a Bible study, like a women group. They would use like a passage from the Bible to make it that topic for that night to speak on. And I went with them one night. I was 16 years old and the topic was temptation. And at the time, believe it or not, I was reading Gary Zukav's Seed of the Soul at 16 years
Oh, wow.
deep for a
Yeah.
16-year-old. And I was just reading about temptation and I raised my hand and she called on me and I gave whatever I was reading about the time about temptation. And she goes, "Young lady, you just gave a sermon." And I had all the women in the room who were my mom's age at the time that were just listening to me. And I was only 16.
Wow.
And
Wow.
I felt confident. And I said, I thought back on that. And I said, I think that, that was really my passion from a long time ago, but it was just unspoken. It was lost,
Yeah.
until I came back into it recently.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Wow. I can't,
It's been a long time season. I've been working on, just kind of, because everything is layered, just when I think I let go of a belief, I'm presented with a situation that tries me and then I'm in tears and it's like, okay, there's another layer I have to get through.
Yep. Oh, yeah. And a lot of people, I think, avoid that part of it because when you said, like, I go into tears, well, it's the same thing. I go through it too. I think though what's different is for us, we've developed ourselves so much that it just happens a lot quicker. But that's something that I hear from clients is I'm like afraid and I'm like, I really get that you're afraid, and digging deep into our past can be scary. And I've had clients who have stuff that is just silly things like fishing trips and stuff. I mean, and then when they work through that process and then they're just like light up. I just love that it's that moment and you get to experience all that with them. I got goosebumps.
I know.
It's a beautiful process.
Yeah. And I say that even to kids or even teens. It's just an emotion. I heard from somewhere that it takes 90 seconds for an emotion to travel through you. So if you're upset for more than that minute and a half, it's because you're just beating the drum. You're playing the story over and over in your head. You're letting it snowball. But if you just sit with it, 90 seconds, and I'll be right here on the phone with you. We can breathe through it together. It's all it's going to take. So I think part of the fear is just, you don't want to feel it. So you just kind of push it aside, but it's going to come up and you're going to deal with it. So let's just sit with it for a minute and a half. And then you're going to see that you survive. And every time you do see that you survive, you feel stronger. I think you come out stronger.
Nice. I like that. Yeah, that's a really good technique. Okay. I'm like, oh, yeah, I can see using that.
It's just energy. That's really emotions are just, we're so afraid to feel them, but it's really just energy, and energy, needs to move and everything changes. We're always
and it shows up in people's bodies. I mean, like you have all these diseases and chronic pain and all that stuff. I mean, I have my own story about that kind of stuff, but when I really got that I was feeding the word pain in my head, and I gave that up, I And I was like, I choose pain because I choose pain. And gave it up and just kept giving it up, giving it up, giving it up, giving it up. And before I knew it, the pain was gone. But the original piece to that was the emotional work. When I was free from some of those old stories and fears and the limiting beliefs, it was like, oh my gosh, just completely lifted off of me. And now I realize over time is that my body actually just speaks to me. So yeah, I think what, transformational work is an amazing thing. And I invite anybody who's listening to just try it, get with somebody, because we're not here to tell you how to live your life or any of that, what to do, or we're here definitely not to judge you. So, and I think it's absolutely amazing. You could actually, I was just thinking, what if you started like a school where you teach teachers what you know?
That I love it. Yeah. Now I was saying I want to start. I've done a couple of trainings, like PD, the staff development and parent workshops. But I'm actually working with another coach right now, and we're putting together a program for kids and teens. We're combining some of his coaching skills and mine with the mindfulness approach and the emotional work, and we're going to package it to sell it as an online course, just to teach. It's very, very important, and this needs tools, definitely.
Well, if for the listeners, if you want to connect with Nikki, like I said in the beginning, I just want to remind you again that you just go to mindfulmattersliving.com. And do you have a Facebook page?
I do. You can find my business page at Mindful Matters Living.
Okay, perfect. And then where can people pick up My Gracie, your book?
Oh, My Gracie is on Amazon and barnesandnoble.com.
Awesome. Oh, cool. We don't even have a Barnes and Noble. I love Barnes and Nobles when I go to Seattle.
Wow, I love Barnes and Noble. But it's at barnesandnoble.com. It's online.
barnesandnoble.com. Okay. And is there anything, Nikki, that you would like to just let the listeners know, or just something you're dying to tell them before we end today's show?
I do. I want to say, love yourself. I think one of the hardest things to do in life is to love yourself. That's certainly one of my biggest lessons that I'm still learning, to just, be easy on yourself, cut yourself some slack, forgive yourself first and foremost, and everyone else. It's just very freeing, and tap into that peace and that happiness and that love. It's inside of you. You have an endless supply of it. And
beautiful. Well, Nikki, thank you so much for your time and being on my show today. And I just want to acknowledge you for the love and the teaching that you bring to your students and to the future teenagers and adults in our world. Because I really believe that what you're doing is definitely going to skyrocket. You're an amazing woman. So thank you again for being on my show.
Thank you, Susan. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. It's been